Hi my lovies and welcome back to my channel. Today's video is all on the new Morphe palette. This is the 35O2 palette and I did this eye makeup look. I wore it in my Penny skincare video and so many people were like, oh my god, I need a tutorial for that. So I filmed this today. I'm so lispy with these Invisalign. I used the Morphe 35O2 palette. I was so thankful to receive this in the mail from Morphe, so thank you so much Morphe. They're so kind to me. They usually send me most of their new releases in their palette and I'm always so appreciative of that. But if you are looking to buy Morphe, I find the best places to buy them are either Beauty Bay or Ulta, because Ulta I think has like free shipping around the US and I know Beauty Bay ships like really affordably around the world, so I will link them down below. This is what the 35O2 palette looks like. You get this little sheet in on top of it because it has all the names now, which I find really handy. When I'm doing a tutorial I can say, oh, I'm using this color, that color, and it actually has a name instead of me kind of like randomly pointing. Do you need the 35O2 palette? Well, I'm going to compare it to the original 35O palette and kind of say what I prefer, pros and cons of both of the palettes and which one I prefer. Now this is the 35O palette. This is the original one and mine has seen much better days. That's what that one looks like. So we've got 35O2 palette and the 35O. 35O is obviously quite warm. It's a lot of oranges, there's a lot of browns in it, but I think that this one is like the more amped up warmth. I mean, there's fiery reds, oranges, coppers, I mean everything you could ever want from a warm palette. For the purpose of this video I'm going to discuss both palettes and say the pros and cons and which one I prefer. So let's talk about the 35O palette. I think it came out like 2 years ago. There was a huge demand for this. I remember how tricky this was to get. It was out of stock for so long. You can see from the array of shadows in it, like it is extremely warm. It's very orange, kind of one of those palettes that most people gravitate towards. Well, if you like warm shadows you're gonna love it. So the pros of this palette for me are the pigmentation, obviously the different array of shadows. I feel like there's so much variety in it. This copper shade here in the bottom is one of my holy grails from this palette, and this shade here, and these three oranges are just fabulous. I love this shade here for transition, and I love this cream shade here because this is what I set my lid with and I highlight with, as well as the shade beside it, which is a really nice shimmery cream. Some of the browns are very alike, like this one here and that one there, and these two browns, that brown, you know, some of them are a little bit similar, but for the price that you're paying it's a really well-rounded palette. The shadows are really well pigmented, they blend out amazingly well, they're creamy. The only thing I don't like about this palette is there's no black, so I would have loved if this was black and not as close to this brown. I think it has everything a warm palette should have, but it doesn't have a black, and I miss my black from this palette. That is my only neg thing to say really about it. I also think for like the price, you can't really be going wrong with the Morphe palettes. Like they're not going to be absolutely amazingly groundbreaking eyeshadows, but they do what they're supposed to, and I love the shadows and I've never had an issue with them in my life. This is the new 35O2 palette. Now the packaging has changed from the original Morphe, and that's because they've gone to Ulta now, whereas before they were just a black label company. There's nothing wrong with black labeling. I know an awful lot of people kind of have like qualms about it or issues with it. To be honest, it doesn't and never bothered me, black labeling, as long as the product was good. This is the 35O2 palette. I had no idea this palette was even coming to me because there was so much going on in my home life at the time and I wasn't even keeping up to date with what was going on in the beauty industry. But when this arrived at my door I was like so super surprised and stoked, and I must say that Morphe did really brighten up my entire day. And in my opinion, the first thing that I noticed from this palette that was missing was that cream shade. The lightest shade we have here is kind of like this like peachy shade. It's not light at all. It's fine for me like for a transition, but you couldn't set your eyeshadow with it. I have an itchy nose. We know the 35O palette has this cream shade up here at the top. It doesn't have a black, and this one doesn't have a cream. I just can't understand it. Like I really don't get it. They definitely could have switched out one of these browns here, because even though they are beautiful shades, but I mean they're all pretty similar, as you can see that there. Like this one here is quite similar to that one there, and these two here are quite similar. I would have been a much happier camper if they had included a matte cream or a highlighting shade, because this palette does not do everything. Where the 35O palette, I can get away with it. Like, I don't necessarily need a black in it. I can't get away with this palette alone because I need a cream shade to set my lid, and I need a cream shade to highlight underneath my brow bone and my inner tear duct. So I have to dip into another palette, which is a major issue. If I bring this palette with me, I'm gonna have to bring a matte cream shade like from like Inglot or another brand, just a separate cream shade with me. I can't use this palette alone, if that makes any sense. I love the fact that this palette has a matte red and a shimmery red. Like, look at the pigmentation of them. They are crazy pigmented. Like, they're super pigmented. And it has this gorgeous orange, which I haven't actually gotten to play around with yet. Had this palette for, I'd say, coming up on 3 weeks. I've used it quite a lot, so I kind of have a good understanding of how it works. I feel like the pigmentation is a little bit better in this palette. I feel like it blends out a little bit better on my eyes than my other Morphe palettes. I don't know if they've improved on the formula for this palette. I feel like they have. I just feel like it's a lot more creamier or something. It blends out a lot better. I don't have any choppiness, not that I ever did with the 35O palette, but I have found with some of my other Morphe eyeshadows that I can get a little bit of a choppy look with them, whereas I feel like this one is perfect. I think that kind of gives you an overview of what both of them look like. This one has a tiny bit of variety because it has more cool shades, like cool browns in it. Which one is my favorite? I'm gonna say the 35O2 palette is my favorite. I reached for the 35O2 palette a lot more than I reached for my 35O. Like, the second that this arrived, I just had a much more of a desire to put this on my eye. I've always used the 35O palette, but when this second one arrived, I was like, okay, now I'm just gonna reach for that all the time, and I'm reaching for it a lot more than this. The only downfall is the cream shade. So what I might do is I might try and unpop one of the kind of similar brown shades and put this cream shade into it, I think. I love the new packaging. I love the fact that these shadows now have names. I love everything about it. So I definitely would highly recommend the 35O2 palette. 35O palette is still amazing, still well loved. But I just think that this new sister palette is just a little bit more up my alley, especially with the reds, the bright oranges. I feel like I can do a bit more with the palette. It's definitely more vibrant. I'm never gonna stop using my 35O palette ever, but I definitely have been gravitating towards this one a little bit more. Okay guys, so that's my overview of both the palettes. I'm gonna do the eye tutorial next. I hope you guys enjoy the eye tutorial, and I'll talk to you guys in a little bit. To start off this tutorial, I'm taking Paint Early Paint Pot from MAC, and I'm just gonna place that all over my eyelid, and I will be setting that also with the translucent powder before I go in with the shade Universal from the Morphe 35O2 palette. I'm just going to place that right through my crease with the Morphe M504 brush. And then I'm going to take the shade Orb. It's just like the next shade up. It's a little bit darker, but it still has that really warm undertone to it. I'm just going to place this through the crease as well, kind of focusing it more on the outer V of the eye. I'm taking the shade Terracotta on a natural fiber brush and placing this in the outer V of the eye. This is a gorgeous, warm, chestnutty shade, and it's highly pigmented, so be careful with this. I just place a little bit down, then kind of blend it out, and then place another little bit of it down before blending it out again. It just builds up the shadow on the outer V without being too intense, and you can kind of control the amount of shadow you're placing down. Make sure to take plenty of time with that big fluffy brush when you're blending it out. It might take a little bit of time to remove any of the harsh lines, but keep at it and it will look beautiful. Next, I'm going to go in with the shade Brave on a more denser natural fiber brush, and I'm just going to place this on the outer V again, just kind of a similar position as I placed that last shade, but I'm just going to lightly apply this one and blend it out before I go in with the shade Pure. And this is a gold shade. It is kind of a little bit hard to control. There is a little bit of sparkle to this shade, so I do recommend maybe wetting your brush. You don't have to, but it's just a recommendation if you don't want too much fallout. And then the next shade I'm going to take is Zippy, and I'm going to place this in the center. This is an absolutely beautiful coppery shade. I'm just going to be light-handed with this because it is quite pigmented, and this is a little bit more foiled than the shade Pure, so you won't have too much fallout from it. The final shade I'm going to take is Wiz, and that's that matte black shade. Just placing that in the extreme outer V just to kind of add a little bit more dimension to the outer V and a bit of depth to the look. Now I'm going to take a cream shade. This is from the 35O palette. I'm placing that cream shade underneath my brow just to lift up my brow, and then into the inner tear duct just to open up my eyes. Before going in with my Essence liquid ink liner, I'm just going to create a wing with this. I'm keeping the tape on just as a guide. You don't obviously have to use tape for this look. And then I'm just bringing the eyeliner right into my inner corner just to a point. Now for shadow on the lower lash line, I'm taking that shade again, Brave, and just placing that on the outer corner of my eye with a really small pencil brush. And then I'm going to take the shade Zodiac on the inner portion of my eyes. Thank you so much guys for watching today. I hope you enjoyed this video. Hope you enjoyed the comparison and the eye tutorial. And I will talk to all of you guys in my next video. I love you guys. Mwah. Bye.